I already miss not having a CR touch.
That's just great quality from a machine that's so small and cheap.
I've got a dog watching over me. It's just kind of making sure I'm doing the mods right. Just because a printer is inexpensive doesn't mean it has to feel cheap. Today I'm going to be unboxing one of the cutest little printers on the market, the Ender 2 Pro. This pint-sized printer packs all the same features as the Ender 3 V2, but it's in a much smaller package. I mean that figuratively and literally. I mean, look at this box. Here you've got all the accessories you'll need to put your printer together. We've also got all of our spare parts, some sample filament, an SD card, a spool holder, a power cable, and the interface screen. This is a pretty basic screen, but you really don't need anything fancier than this for a basic 3D printer. Inside the box here we have the gantry and the base of the 3D printer, and this is pretty much everything. I gotta say, the assembly doesn't get much easier than this. You've just got this upper section and this lower section. I assume we just bolt these together and start printing. Let's take a quick peek under the printer here. So it looks like we've got our enclosed electronics, and on the back we have the power supply. This printer appears to have some blocky rubber feet on the bottom. You can see they're about 3/4 of an inch tall. So that gives you plenty of clearance under the machine to get decent airflow. This thing is so light and easy to work with. I mean, I think it's worth getting one of these just for the convenience factor. Something that I've seen on pretty much every Creality printer that I've worked with is they machine down a flat spot where two pieces of the frame go together. And that should help the machine be more precise and just make sure that this thing's more sturdy when it's all put together. I assume I just take these two long bolts and insert them through the bottom here. Then I can take the biggest Allen wrench and attach this gantry. Take the biggest Allen wrench and attach this gantry just with two screws in the bottom. I'll just jiggle it a little bit and make sure it's kind of settled in nicely. For some reason they've added some additional screw holes here. I mean, this seems sturdy enough as is, but I might as well put those extra screws in. So one thing that I like to see on efficient assemblies is using a common fastener tool to put the whole thing together. I mean, I've had to put 4 screws in, and I've had to use 2 different Allen wrenches, and when I get to these last 2 bolts, I assume I'm going to have to use yet another size of Allen wrench. So 6 screws requiring 3 Allen wrenches is a bit excessive. I think they could have done a little bit better job optimizing their fastener choices. But again, this is a pretty small nitpick, and they do provide all the tools that you need to put this together. If we direct our attention up towards the top, I've got to put this in, and we'll tighten that down. The last fastener goes on down here. We'll just put this right there, and that'll be our spool holder. So it looks like this is a deployable design, so I can fold this back when it's not in use for transportation or whatever. So that's nice and compact. And then when you're printing something, you can fold it out and attach this arm, and that'll hold onto your spool while you're printing. It seems like a pretty nice solution overall. One thing I don't really like is how much extra space this takes up on your desktop. It'd be nice if there was a way to incorporate this that's more in line with the machine's small footprint. The last thing I'll install is this screen over here. So I'll just plug that in just like so. This screen attaches right here. So one thing I'm noticing right off the bat is if you go to store this, the only thing that's really sticking out here is the screen. So I guess you can take it off and kind of put it over here. And now it's taking up less space. But it would be nice if there was like a clip or a latching mechanism that this just like snapped into place to keep it out of the way. This isn't too bad. This is a nice, small, compact package, easy to transport. In about 5 minutes, I was able to put this thing together. I love how easy this thing is to just pick up and move around. If we look around back, we can see this is set to 230 volts. I'm just going to flip that over to 115 volts because I'm in the US. And we're ready to turn this thing on. We'll just plug it in on the side here and flip the switch. Also, by the way, I bought this with my own money. Alright, the first thing that I'm noticing about this machine is it's kind of unnecessarily loud. I mean, come on. Why are these fans so loud? But yeah, this amount of noise for a printer that's just turned on, not doing anything, is a bit excessive. I'm going to put my mic up next to the fans so you can kind of hear them. Holy cow. I mean, just listen to this. This thing's quite loud. So I'm going to open this up and take a look at the fans in there and see if there's any quick replacements I can just toss in. Alright, so we're looking for a 60 millimeter fan. So which one should I pick here? And we got this one, we got that one. After I heard all the hype about the Linus Tech Tips screwdriver, I decided to buy one. I didn't buy the Linus Tech Tips one because that's expensive. I got this instead on Amazon. It was only about 10 bucks and it works really well. It's got all these small screwdriver bits, and it's got a ratcheting end here. It's even got this like rotary mechanism for switching which screwdriver you want to use, so you can switch between some different ones. And all of these are magnetically held in place. I'll put a link in the description to the screwdriver if you want to pick one up for yourself. I think I've undone all of the screws here, so let me just open this up. It's not wanting to come loose there. I'm guessing they did this annoying thing where they hide some of the fasteners under these plastic feet. Yeah, why do they do that? That's annoying. These plastic feet are never going to stick on there quite the same. But if you want to take this cover off, you got to take the feet off. Now let's see what's on the inside of this Ender 3, this Ender 2 Pro. So it looks like we've just got one fan here. Oh wow, and they've even managed to fit a little drawer in here, so you can put your tools away there. But that's cool that they were able to fit one on here, despite this machine being so small. My other printers are big and mostly stationary, and it's always easier for me to just go over to my toolkit and get some proper tools for the job. But since this is a small, lightweight, and portable machine, it actually makes a lot of sense to have this drawer. This has the old school wiring harness. You've got all your individual cables here. Unlike the Ender 3S1, which has that ribbon cable system, there's a trade-off that you're making here. And overall, this is a better solution, in my opinion, because it's easier to modify things. I haven't actually looked at a Creality motherboard in a while, and it looks like they've made some improvements. We've got this dense stack of connectors here, which seems to be really space efficient, and everything looks pretty tidy in here. But the one thing that I'm kind of taking issue with is this fan. Looks like it goes right here, and it just blows air onto the motherboard. It's pretty loud, and you can see if I stop the fan, it quiets the system down quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and say we don't need that fan. So let's just unplug that. It looks like it's a 24 volt 0.1 amp fan. While we're messing around here, I might as well see what the other fan that's making all the noise is. Seems to be coming from the hot end. So let's take this apart too. All it takes is one screw, then you can pop the rest of this off. And boy, is that a loud fan. So you can hear this. It's moving quite a bit of air, but it's pretty loud too. Let me go ahead and stop it. Yeah, that's a powerful fan. So we'll see if we can replace this with something a little more quiet as well. Now if you're going to try this at home, remember to cut one wire at a time. If you cut both of them, you're going to cause a short circuit, which could cause your entire printer to fry. So just one at a time. Or better yet, don't be an idiot and just turn your printer off before cutting those wires. But you can hear now, basically the printer's making no noise. I've disabled all the fans. So all that noise really was coming from just this one fan in the bottom and this one fan on the hot end. To get this fan to quiet down, I just put a 150 ohm resistor in series with it. And that'll knock down the wattage of this fan by about a third. So now you can hear it's running a lot more quietly. And to keep the resistor cool, I'm just going to bend the solid lead that leads up to this resistor and kind of stick it right here. And this is just keeping it in a stream of cool air so that resistor stays nice and cool while it's reducing the power to this fan. Oh, while we're down here, we might as well look at how the wiring is in the bottom of this box. As you can see, Creality is back to their old tricks. They're not using crimped ferrule ends here. I'd really recommend using crimped ferrule ends on this because that's going to be a lot more durable of a connection. They cost less than a penny each, so I'm not sure why Creality has excluded them. They're just trying to save as much money as possible on this build. And this is especially bad because this is all a plastic housing that, for all I know, is flammable. So I really don't like this practice of using these non-crimped ends. I'm going to run it like this because I'll be doing a complete overhaul in this printer in the near future. But yeah, these crimped ferrule ends really should be there on this machine. Just to get a slightly better view here, you can see there's no crimped ferrule ends. They just stripped these wires and stuck them in here. And that's not good. You can buy your own ferrule crimping tool and just install those quite easily. They only cost about $10 to $20 online, and you'll get a box of ferrule ends that you can put on all of your 3D printers and on all of your home electronics projects. So if you have this machine, I think it's really worth picking one of those up and fixing this little wiring situation inside of this Ender 2 Pro. But we all need to shame Creality for this kind of behavior. Leaving them out on this printer is just causing an unnecessary fire hazard. And for all I know, this plastic base is highly flammable, so this is a really bad combination of design choices. At least on the Ender 3 V2, this was all a metal housing, so if anything bad happened in there, it would likely contain the heat and possible fire. But here, this is all plastic, so this could all just go up in flames. So let's put this back in place. This is a lot quieter now, so I'm happy with this. I'm just going to button it back up, and we'll do some print tests. I don't know why they hid some of the fasteners underneath these feet. It's just kind of annoying because it makes it harder to install and remove this bottom cover. I mean, it's one thing if this was like a laptop and they wanted to hide all of the fasteners, but there's a bunch of fastener holes here already. So what's the point of tucking these away underneath those rubber pads? It's probably so they can hide their shame in terms of those ferrule ends that are uncrimped. Shame. Anyways, I'm going to leave those two fasteners out so that I can remove this bottom without having to mess with these pads again. I also want to see if I can quiet down this fan a little bit. I actually installed a third-party fan. This one seemed to be a little bit quieter than the stock one. One of the annoying things about these old school hot ends where you just have wires running to the hot end is that we've got these two wires here that I want to plug this into, but you can't just plug them in. You have to cut these and solder them, so it's a long process that's somewhat tedious and annoying. If you had a breakout board here, then you could just plug this fan in and get going, but unfortunately we have this old school harness and there's no breakout in sight. So I'm going to use some more of these K2 butt connectors, and I'll just put the wires in these and pinch them together. I just have to cut the wire going to this fan. I'm going to split these wires apart. And the nice thing about these butt connectors is that I just have to put the two wires in here. This one's going to be a little bit difficult. This one I'll have to strip because this wire insulation is a little bit too large in diameter. And with both of my wires in position, I'll just clamp this. And that'll drive a conductive metal plate through both of those wires and make a nice connection there. Okay, and I'll do the same thing on this other end. There we go, and when I pinch that together, this fan turned on. It's quite a bit quieter than the old one. So, as you can hear, this thing still makes a bit of noise. It's not super quiet, but I took the noise levels down a notch. I still want to do some extra upgrades on this machine to get it to silence of the fans level. But right now, we've got a little bit of noise and we're just going to have to live with it. One thing that I do like about this machine in terms of its sound levels is that this power supply in the back is pretty small and it actually doesn't have a fan on it. So there's really only two fans that are making a lot of noise when this thing's at idle, which makes it a lot easier to upgrade than your Ender 3s because the Ender 3s all have a fan that's quite loud in their power supply. I turned the power off on this machine so that I can plug all my stepper motors and stuff in and get my first print started. Here's my X-axis limit switch. Classic Ender move. I've got to stuff this limit switch into this little hole here to get it to work. Now I'll plug in my Z-axis limit switch and my Z-axis stepper motor. And with that, I'm ready to print. Let's do this. So I'll just go ahead and turn the printer on. I'll take out my little SD card, plug that in over here. Nope, that's not where it goes. Is it? That looks like where it should go. Yeah, that's where it goes. Just felt like it was going to get lost in there somewhere. Okay, so plug in that little SD card. But first I need to do my bed leveling. I forgot this thing doesn't have a BL touch. Z always takes a little bit longer because you've got this whole thing that has to move down. It's pretty slow, but oh well. I'm going to check the tension level on all of these wheels. The Z-axis has a great level of tension on those wheels. The X-axis is a little bit loose. So let's see if we can fix that. And just got to come in here, tighten up those wheels. It seems like I'm not able to tension this to the right amount. This eccentric nut is already as tight as it can go. Now time to check the bed for wheel tension. This wheel is pretty loose, so I'm going to need to tighten that up. So with just a little bit of adjustment, all the wheels are properly tensioned. The only thing I'm concerned about is this X-axis. It's pretty much as tight as it can go, and if those wheels wear out anymore, then I'm going to have issues with being able to tighten this. I don't know if some of these bolts are loose or what, or if it's just manufacturing tolerances on Creality's part. For now, I'll just run with it. We'll just leave it as a problem for future me. I'm going to take out this sample filament. Here we go. I've kind of clamped the filament back there against the wires. That's not a great solution, but when you don't have this on a spool, it's just kind of messy no matter how you do it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and perform bed leveling. I already missed not having a CR touch, but I consider this to be a fundamental skill in learning how to use a 3D printer, so everyone should know how to do this. I guess I'm going to print 2Z. I'm not sure who or what 2Z is, but I guess we're about to find out. One thing that I'm curious about is how fast the bed heats up on this thing. It's a pretty small printer, so that might mean the bed can heat up faster. But then again, it's got a small power supply, so maybe it'll take just as long for the bed to heat up. It looks like it's heating up relatively slowly. It's about on par with some of my other Ender 3 machines, maybe a little bit slower. Here's an audio sample with the camera about 1 meter away from the printer, and I'm about half a meter away from the camera. So you can hear my voice and hear the printer in comparison. I'd say this printer is pretty loud, even with the modifications that I did to make it a little more quiet. I mean, there's not a whole lot we can do about it without completely overhauling this printer, so I'm fine with how it is right now. As you can tell, the stepper motors are pretty quiet, all the motion systems are fairly quiet, but the fans are just ridiculously loud. So I definitely want to see if there's something that I can do about that. Alright, so we just finished up our first print, and I've got to say, I'm pretty blown away by the print quality that I've got out of this machine. This is pretty much a perfect print. There's absolutely no flaws that are visible from here. That's just great quality from a machine that's so small and cheap. I mean, just look at this. There's a really minor amount of stringing up here, but that's not that big of a deal. All these surfaces are absolutely perfect. I mean, just look at the reflections coming off of this thing. You can tell that it's just a very well-made print. I can't overstate it enough. This machine really rocks in terms of print quality. Just look at this little bunny. It's perfect. So overall, I have a really good first impression of this machine. It prints great, it's easy to use and handle, it's super portable so you can take it with you wherever you want, and I mean, it's just such a little cute little printer. I don't see why you wouldn't want one of these in your 3D printer collection. I mean, what other 3D printer can you just pick up and toss around like this? Like, say you need to look at something on the back, you can just flip it around. It's nice and easy. While we're back here, let's look at these stepper motors. It looks like they're using, I think, the same size stepper motors as the other Ender 3s do. I was thinking that they might be able to get away with using a smaller motor for the X and Y axes since they've got less weight on them. But they went with the standard size stepper motors, which means you'll have a decent amount of overhead for pushing this printer to go even faster. So now that we've assembled the printer and assessed its print quality, it's time to get into my final thoughts about the Ender 3... It's time to get into my final thoughts about the Ender 2 Pro. Alright, so overall, what I really like about this printer is it's small and cute, easy to handle and work with, and the print quality is amazing. There's very few gimmicks on this machine. It's just covered in functional pieces, and it works very well for its price point. The hot end had some black filament in there when I first fired it up, so that indicates to me that they did some quality control testing. That nice little bit of quality control really helps make sure that you're getting a working product when you buy one of these things. I think one of the secrets to its print quality is its small size. Because it's so much smaller, this Bowden tube is much shorter, which helps it control the extrusion better, despite it being a Bowden tube setup. Also, since this is smaller, they can get away with this simpler construction. If this was way longer, like a normal size 3D printer, then this flexibility might start to pose some more serious issues. But now I want to get into some things that I think are unforgivable for a printer at any price point. Starting with the noise. These fans are way too loud. I don't know if I'm the only one that cares about this, but having a printer that's just like kind of screaming a little bit is just kind of annoying, and it makes me want to turn the printer off. So just listen to this. And that's after I went through and quieted these fans down a little bit. It would be really nice if they updated the mainboard and firmware so that they could turn these fans off when the printer's not in use. If you look at some other 3D printers, like the Artillery Sidewinder, they use quiet fans, and they make sure that the Hotend fan isn't on when it's not necessary. So that helps make that machine almost completely silent when it's turned on and not printing. And that's a feature that I highly value and would like to see on other 3D printers. The other thing that I'd like to see is some form of bed leveling assistance. This printer is kind of old school in that you have to home all the axes, and it gets it to its 0 coordinate, and then you move the X and Y axes around to the 4 corners of the bed, and then you screw and unscrew these little knobs underneath it to level out the printer bed. I'm fine with manual bed leveling, and it's a necessary step on any printer that doesn't have an automatic bed leveling sensor, but it would have been nice if they included a little tutorial or guide in the interface here, so you could just press a button and it would go to the first position, press another button and go to the second position. I mean, a lot of printers are starting to do that now, and it just makes manual bed leveling that much easier. Manual bed leveling is one of the most annoying parts of running a 3D printer. Anything that you can do to improve that experience is well worth the effort that it takes to implement it. And I think it's an especially good feature to implement because it doesn't cost anything. You just have to update the firmware so that it has those features built into it. And the most heinous thing on this 3D printer is their use of a fully injection molded plastic base and their lack of crimped ferrule end connections. What that means is those connectors that are on the motherboard have a slight chance of loosening over time and heating up and potentially causing a fire. Now, this has always been an issue with 3D printers, especially the Creality 3D printers like the Ender 3, the Ender 3 Pro, and the Ender 3 V2. On their newer printers, they've started using these crimped ferrule ends. These basically just give you a more secure electrical connection, but they've gone back to their old ways with this Ender 2 Pro. They're using unterminated wire ends that are just kind of frayed and can come loose over time. So this is really disappointing to see. Combine that with the fact that this is an injection molded base, which is made out of plastic, which tends to be pretty flammable, and you have a recipe for disaster. So I really think they should be taking electrical safety more seriously with these machines and adding these crimped ferrule ends. They cost less than a penny each, and they make electronics more reliable and more safe, so neglecting them is just kind of unacceptable in my opinion. There's a couple small areas that I think are missed opportunities to make this printer a little bit better. One is this bed tensioning knob sticking out to the side. I wish they found a way to make this a little more compact, just to decrease the footprint in this direction. And the screen just feels really cheap. You can see it snaps into place and it's all wobbly. Just because a printer is inexpensive doesn't mean it has to feel cheap, and it would have been really easy to make this more secure and give it a more quality feel. When you take a look at this handle up here, it's super sturdy and solid and feels like a quality piece of engineering. So I wish they would have just spent a little bit more time on this part and made sure that was sturdy as well. Having this spool holder that flips out to the side, I mean, that's an okay solution. I think if they put the spool holder up top, then that would have made it a little top heavy and a little wobbly. So I'm not entirely sure where the best spot to put the spool holder is. I mean, right here seems good enough. If you need it to be more compact, you can always fold it back like this. And if you're transporting things and need it to be super compact, you can always remove this part here, remove the screen, and kind of collapse this down to be a pretty small package. And then you've got this drawer on the side here that you can use to store your tools. On most 3D printers, I think this is kind of an unnecessary gimmick, but given this thing's small size and portability, I think it's really nice to be able to tuck these tools away, and if you bring this out to the field or bring it to school or wherever you're going, and being able to plug it in and have all your essential tools right here, that's super handy. For larger printers that aren't really designed to be portable, I don't really care for these drawers because they're usually in a house or shop where you have easy access to better tools and better tool storage options. Also, I would like to see a PEI coated bed because these tend to wear out over time. They're just kind of cheap. I know I have a lot of criticisms for this machine, but overall it's something that I could really recommend because it's really small, lightweight, easy to work on. It's a great starter 3D printer, and I think it's a great way to get into the hobby. I picked this one up for $108 on sale. It's a great deal, and if you see it at this price, then I'd highly recommend picking one up. But even at its MSRP of $170, this is a pretty good deal because compared to other 3D printers on the market, this thing has excellent print quality. Speaking of other 3D printers, I'd say the main competitor to this machine is the PRUSA Mini. The PRUSA Mini has a similar small build volume, and it's got the one-sided support. But I think the PRUSA Mini is probably quite a bit higher quality than this. You're paying about 3 times as much for the PRUSA Mini compared to this. I think this is a great 3D printer though, and I'm going to be doing a lot of mods to it, just improving little things about it. The PRUSA Mini will probably give you a little bit better user experience and better upgrades straight out the box, but it still uses a Bowden tube system, it still has the one-sided support and small build area, so I'd say they're pretty comparable. Now, you know I had a lot of complaints about this machine, but I'm going to be addressing those in future videos. I'm basically going to be upgrading this to the machine that I think it should be. So if you're curious how those mods turn out, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I've got a dog watching over me. It's just kind of making sure I'm doing the mods right. So, I mean, yeah, that's cool. Say hi to Sunny, everyone. Sunny, hey! Sunny, hey! Yeah! You can tell she's excited to be here.